This is a presentation of BSRN, Box Studios Radio Network. The Power Play Post Show is on the air, covering minor league hockey since 2003, and now covering the Binghamton Black Bears with news, reactions, and in-depth interviews only heard here. And now from the Box Studios in Kirkwood, New York, here is your host of the Power Play Post Show, Bob Howard.
And hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Power Play Post Show. This is the show for March 31st, 2024. Happy Easter, everybody. I hope everybody is having a great day today. Or if you're listening to this on Monday, I hope you had a great Easter as well. I'm your host, Bob Howard. I have a very special edition of the Power Play Post Show, and I'm really excited about it. I have a really great guest who's on the line with me right now. We'll talk to him in just a few seconds. Later on in the show, I will have Gary Ryan from the Fed League Flash here to talk about the playoffs in the league and where all the teams stand at the moment. And I have a little bit of a segment. We'll talk about the Binghamton Black Bears in the last 4 games and 4 losses, and they got some work to do to get things back together again. But I'm very excited, and I know he's excited. We've been talking about this for a while to get him here on the Power Play Post Show. He is former Binghamton Black Bears netminder. He's now an Elmira River Shark, and I'm just excited to have him on here. He is Sam LiVecchi. Sam, welcome to the show. Great to have you here. Great to be able to talk to you, and thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
Now, Sam, you are a Rochester kid, right? You grew up in Rochester, New York, and everything. What's sports like in Rochester? Now, being an old Binghamton guy here, I know that there's the Rochester Americans. I know that there was a professional lacrosse team, I think, there. So there is a lot of sports there, obviously baseball and football all throughout New York State and everything. But talk to me a little bit about youth sports in Rochester, because I find it very interesting.
Yeah, so hockey has never really been big in Rochester until I turned 14 or 15. So growing up, it was 2 AAA programs, bottom of the end. It was the Rochester Junior Americans and then the Rochester Monarchs. So growing up, we had those 2 teams, pretty watered down for youth hockey, that is. And then we also have the minor league baseball, the Red Wings. That's right. And then, yes, the pro lacrosse team, the Nighthawks, I believe. Yep. I think they're still around.
Yep, the Nighthawks.
And then the Amherst. Yeah. It's box lacrosse, I think.
Box lacrosse. So what is youth hockey? What is youth sports like in Rochester? Like, is there a lot of competitiveness for baseball and for maybe even lacrosse because of the pro team that's there? And hockey, how does that work? Is it easy for players to get ice time if they need to get ice time, or because it's probably spread out a little bit that there's a group of kids love to play baseball, group of kids love to play lacrosse. Same thing with hockey.
Right. Yeah. So I'm not too knowledgeable on the lacrosse or baseball aspect of it. I know my girlfriend's brothers play. I know there's a bunch of fields at pretty much every high school around. But as far as hockey goes in the Rochester area, there's at least 5 rinks within 20 minutes of each other. And one of the rinks actually has 5 sheets of ice in it.
Wow.
So as far as hockey goes, there was never an issue to get ice time, especially when my coach, Chris Collins, he brought, I'm not going to say he brought AAA hockey, but he made Rochester a top-end contender for AAA at Village Sports up in Fairport, New York. Just one small sheet of ice. It was super easy to get ice with him whenever.
Now, you're talking about Chris Collins, the former pro player, too, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
He was my childhood coach growing up. all the way until I was 18.
Yeah, because he's from Fairpoint, New York, and some fans might remember him from the Norfolk Admirals, Bakersfield Condors. He's definitely played. He played at Boston College in the NCAA and everything. Must have been nice to have a coach that has that kind of, kind of credentials, so to speak, that he's seen and done things that now he's trying to teach you guys.
Yeah, that was a big part of it, too. Because when I was 13, I was coming from the Syracuse Nationals, because at the time, Syracuse was the only top-end AAA team around. Mm-hmm.
The Stars.
That team, I'd say 80% of that team is drafted to the NHL at this point. So what Chris did was he came back to Rochester, and I believe his dad owned Village Sports at the time. So what he did is he took chunks of the Syracuse Nationals, the Buffalo Junior Sabres, the lower-end Rochester AAA teams, and he combined it to make the Rochester Coalition, which was a brand-new AAA team, and they ended up being very good.
So it was taking some of the best players. I think we talked to Tommy Ray about something very similar earlier in the season about down in Tampa. There was a pro player that he mentioned that was really doing the same type of thing, kind of hand-picking players from these different organizations where they weren't getting the same look-see, so to speak, maybe by scouts and everything. Because what I think fans may not understand is that there are scouts scouting out kids that are 15 years old, 16 years old, 17 years old, and everything. And what he did was he pulled players together that were great in these other little places and kind of created a more of like a Tampa Bay All-Stars, so to speak, just so they could highlight those really good players. What you're saying is that's what Chris Collins did up in Rochester.
Yeah, exactly that. So his background really helped because I don't think he had any experience in coaching at the time. I could be wrong, but I'm almost positive that he didn't. Because I believe my 15U team was his first year coaching in general.
Right.
But his background, and he would reach out to all these players, and then he'd be like, this is who I am, this is what I've done, this is my resume. We are starting a team in Rochester. We're wondering if you want to come try out. And everyone was just instantly like, oh, yeah, for sure. Like, I would love to play for someone like this. So it was it was a really easy decision.
And what kind of things did you learn about yourself when you were playing with these with the coalition?
Things I learned about myself playing with these guys.
Yeah, as a player, you know.
Yeah, so like I said, growing up, the hockey was pretty watered down. So I always knew that I was good at hockey.
Right.
So once I started playing with the coalition, and we were in it's called the Beast Division. It was one of the toughest divisions in AAA. Mm-hmm. And I think myself and every single one of my teammates on that team, it was really their first year competing. So definitely one thing I learned, I think I speak for all my teammates as well, is that we really learned that we could contend in this level of hockey.
Right. Because this leads you to eventually Brewster Academy and everything, and we're talking prep school. And prep school is really good in Massachusetts. It's probably one of the most competitive high school, I would say, divisions of youth hockey that there is. But prep school hockey in Massachusetts is crazy competitive. But there are other parts in the country, including New York, where prep school hockey is also very super competitive.
Yeah. So Chris Collins, I think he went to Taft, I believe, Taft Prep School.
Right.
So his number one goal with us as a team was to get us to a prep school because he was very certain that and I agree with him. It is one of the best opportunities for hockey to get you to the next level. So, yeah, Brewster Academy is the one I went to. It's in the NESCAC League, I believe, the New England something. It's good hockey. It really is. And then, yes, the prep school is in New York. Bishop Kearney is unreal now. They pretty much built off of Rochester Coalition and turned it into a school. And I thought that was awesome because their first year, they had 3 teams in nationals, and then the second year they had 3-4 teams winning nationals.
Yeah, and that's crazy because it's so super competitive. I compare it to being like a semi-pro team. That's how it's run.
Exactly.
Yeah, which is pretty cool, and so that really does help kind of develop a player's mindset, and really helps them become either a pro player or eventually go to junior school or juniors or junior A or college.
I agree. Yeah. So my goal from prep school is to play juniors, obviously. Because I was just going to take a mainstream route the whole way. My mainstream, what Chris Collins was telling us. So just prep school, juniors, college, professional. Unfortunately, COVID hit towards the end of my second junior year of prep school. So from that point on, so in prep school, here's a little info. You play for your AAA team at the start of the year.
Right.
And then your prep school season starts, and then you finish off the year with your AAA team again after your prep school season.
Right.
So my senior year at Brewster, it was just all AAA because we didn't have a season, nothing, and then we ended up winning nationals that year. So from there, I went to the Minnesota Wilderness Juniors.
Yeah, which is a really good team. You're talking about the NAHL, which is really important because in the United States, the NAHL is something that is highly scouted. People are looking at players, and there are players that maybe not even be the best players, and they still go and a lot of times will play very good pro hockey.
Yeah, I agree. The NAHL is, like you said, highly scouted. Yes, it's tough hockey. It almost kind of reminds me of the FPHL because the NAHL South Division is just pure grit. Like everyone's just laying the body. It's tough hockey.
Right.
And I think the majority of juniors is that way. Like the NCDC. It's tough hockey. It really is.
Now, for you, you went there and you played, and you were 5-7-0 with them, 3.62 goals against average, and everything. Would you say that was at that point in your career the toughest hockey you'd played?
At that point in my career, yes, because Rochester Coalition, I'm coming from a team in a league that's dominating everyone and not really getting tested that much. But as soon as I went to the NAHL, everyone's a contender. Junior hockey is almost, I want to say, faster in a way from 18U.
Right.
And it's a lot tougher. Even as a goalie, you're getting banged up by people. It was definitely the toughest hockey that I've played at that point in my career because the atmosphere, like, I've never had fans coming to my games unless it's a student section. So
sure.
That was the first time in my career I've been chirped by fans, players trying to fight. It was tough on your mental state and your physical state. So 100%, that was the toughest year of hockey that I've experienced at that point.
Now, what's the difference, if you can explain the difference in maybe the quality of play or just the difference in the two leagues, going from Minnesota to New Jersey and playing with the Rockets? What's the difference there? How can you explain that to people?
So the difference there, it's both Tier 2 juniors.
Yes.
So on paper, it's the same level of hockey. But as far as the NAHL to the NCDC, I want to say the NA is just way more physical. From my experience, at least, going to the NCDC from the NA, it's just younger. Mm-hmm. My team was full of 18-year-olds. Jason Gallucci at the time, he was committed to Penn State. And then we had another kid, I forgot what his first name was, but his last name was also Fitzgerald. He was committed to UConn. And these are just kids.
Yeah.
So it's not nearly as physical. Half the league wears, more than half in the NCDC wears like full cages and bubbles.
Yep.
And in the NA, everyone's wearing a half shield fighting. There's rarely ever fighting in the NCDC because it's not allowed. So,
which makes the NAHL just that much more physical, more tough, more grit, more, and a lot of skilled players come out of there, which is
100%
pretty insane. Why only 1 year of Junior A? For you?
I don't know. So it came down to, I guess, spot to play the next year. So it was tough on me that year, just going from Minnesota to home to New Jersey, back to home. I was talking to the Maine Nordiques in the NAHL, and from what they were telling me, I got a main camp invite. They were set on their goalies for that year.
Sure.
So I was like, okay, yeah, I'll go play in Maine for one more year and then go to college. But it's not Maine's fault at all. They had two goalies come from the USHL, which is, in my opinion, if not the best junior league in the world. That and the OHL and the BCHL all go kind of.
Yeah, no, you're right. The USHL, I think 25 years ago, in its infancy, was not producing players like it is today. And it's an option now for American-born players to be able to get to the NHL like they've never had before. And I think it's a great program. So you're dead on right. It's up there now with the OHL, and the BC. So I agree.
Yeah, 100%. I agree.
But you didn't play. But you didn't play last year. So that had to have been tough for you.
It was. It was a really tough decision. So me getting cut from Maine, my agent at the time, he was a scout for the Youngstown Phantoms in the USHL. Mm-hmm. So he was like, I think you might be able to play here. But I guess some stuff went down with their coaching staff. Mm-hmm. I wasn't too worried about it. And then I had a couple teams from the EHL call me. NCDC Premier. And I just didn't want to play at that level of hockey. And honestly, at that point in my life, I was kind of set on just staying home for a bit.
Sure.
I was unsure if I wanted to continue with hockey. And we're almost 3/4 of the way through that hockey season that I'm not even playing. And I get another call from the Ogden Mustangs in the NCDC or NCDC Premier, I forget. They want me to come finish the year in playoffs with them. And I was like, and that was probably the first time that entire year I actually thought to myself, wow, I really want to play hockey again.
Gotcha. So that got but at some point, though, because you could have gone and played college hockey for this season, at some point that didn't become a reality and you get hooked up with the Binghamton Black Bears. So talk about that decision. So you're thinking, all right, I want to play hockey again. I'm ready. I really want to do this. So how do you go from 1 year of junior to potentially possibly go to college, but then you end up in Binghamton. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so it honestly is kind of funny. So it was last summer. I was visiting my buddy up in Nashville, and he trains out there with the Predators goalie coach. So I got some ice with him while I was out there. I was like, yeah, let's might as well, right?
Nice.
I went out there, and there's a bunch of NHL prospects there. I mean, it was crazy. I'm like, wow, like, this is fun. Like, I forgot, like, hockey is fun. And I talked to one of the guys there, one of the coaches. He was like, yeah, dude, like, why don't you try and go play somewhere next year? And then, like, you could, like, play minor league pro. And honestly, that was the first time I found out what the FPHL and SPHL were.
Gotcha.
Because I didn't even know they existed. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. And then I started emailing colleges. And then I eventually committed to UNLV in the ACHA to play there. And then me and my girlfriend got talking, like, the situation at home. Like, we had an apartment, bills, just because, like, I didn't expect to play hockey again. So, like, we have a lease and all this stuff. So I was like, you know what? Like, at the same time, I didn't want to go to college anyways. I've never been a book guy, never the smartest one with numbers or anything. So I was like, I'm going to just reach out to some of these teams and see if I can manage just to skip college in general, which I had no hope in doing at all. So I found, I don't know if it was a portal, but it was with all the FPHL coaches, like, contacts, like, emails. So I sent Sherwood one, a couple other teams, and I had 3 or 4 teams get back to me, and I was like, holy crap, yeah. So I was set on going to this one team, and then Sherwood calls me, and it was just honestly night and day with any other coach I've talked to, just because the first thing he said was, oh, you're from Rochester, so am I. I was like, oh, boy,
this
is great. And just the younger coach, younger players coach.
Yeah.
It was enticing, and I was like, even after that first call, like, I told my parents and my girlfriend, I'm like, I am dead set on Binghamton.
Yeah.
And they're like, are you sure? I'm like, oh yeah, like 100%. So yeah, Sherwood and I kept talking throughout the summer. I actually met him up in Philadelphia for dinner one night. Just super nice guy, and I was like, yep. I never had a single doubt about picking Binghamton. So then I went to.
So let me take you back for a second, okay? So you told me you kind of had an offer with another team in the FPHL, but it was a conversation with Brant Sherwood that changed your mind, it didn't change your mind, but just said, you know what? Thanks for the offer from this other team, but Binghamton was the way to go. It was just one conversation with Brant.
Yeah, pretty much. I think I texted Brant after our first phone call because I don't know if Brant knew that I had this other offer from the team at the time. So I texted. I think it was 10 o'clock at night. I'm like kind of just overthinking. I'm like, I just got to tell Brant just so like
to be open and honest, transparent.
Yeah, to be open and honest because I don't want him to like find out and think like. So right after like that night, I was like. I just texted him like, hey, I just want to be honest. Like, this team offered me this, but I just want to tell you that I'm all in with you if you're all in with me. And then he almost texted back immediately. It was like, absolutely love that. He's like, yep, like, we're all in. I'll call you tomorrow. I was like, sweet.
Yeah, that very much sounds like Brant and everything with all the conversations I've had with Coach Sherwood and everything. So talk a little bit about coming to camp. Obviously, you come to camp. And you see Eggy, you see Connor Mack, and you realize that there's going to be a competition to get on this team. And, you know, you didn't know it at the time, but I mean, Sherwood would do whatever he could to keep 3 guys on this team all the way up into February. And that's very rare, especially with a 19-man roster, having to finagle so many things. So talk about coming into camp, and you see Eggy, and you see Connor Mack.
So, yeah, I mean, it's always intimidating to see competition, and especially me being the way younger guy going into it. I'm like, okay, like, I have been, like, vouching for myself all summer. Like, I just got to, I don't know, like, just prove to everyone that I have, like, proving myself.
Sure.
So, we'll, like, ease into it here. So I met Eggy, super nice guy. He went to Brockport, so he knows a bunch of my friends, actually, that go to Brockport, a couple of his teammates. And then I met C-Mac, super nice guy off the bat. And then even Forget was there at the time.
Yes, Jeremy Forget.
Also a super nice guy. So, yeah, I mean, it's super intimidating, just especially at the time. Forget was super intimidating to me because it's his second year pro, and he's played 4 years at Princeton.
Oh, yeah.
I'm, like, almost thinking to myself, what am I getting myself into here? Like, am I even going to scratch the surface of this league?
Well, Forget's credits, being at Princeton, and we're talking about, a very good school that has produced very good hockey players and everything. I could see coming in going, oh, my God, this guy probably knows how to play hockey so much better than me. But, from what I've heard from all of you guys is that this was a very welcoming and competitive environment.
It was, absolutely. Like, just like Eggy himself, like, always has a smile on his face. Like, he's just a super nice guy to talk to. Like, it's just true, like, sportsmanship. Like, obviously, we all know we're there to compete. No one had bad blood. It was just, it was honestly fun. Like, I had fun competing in camp, and we all played well, and it all ended up working out for all 3 of us. So, I mean, it was just, like I said, fun. It was fun hockey.
So you guys start off the season together, and before we get to any gameplay or anything like that, talk to me about the friendship between you, Connor Mack, and Eggy, because it's something that they've talked about, and I just want to hear from the third person now, the third of the 3, because you are the one that hadn't talked to you yet, and we were going to talk to you about a week before the the ultimate release, and then you went and started playing with Elmira and everything. So talk to me a little bit about the friendship between the 3 of you guys.
Yeah, we were the 3 Stooges, man. Like, we were just 3 goofballs. So, like I said earlier, my mentality going into a team is, like, growing up, for every team I've played for, it's like, I like my goalie partner as a person, but, like, I really don't like him on the ice, just because that's how I've always been, like, super competitive, like, that's my net, whatever. With these guys, it was just weird. We just immediately clicked, and for the first time in my career, like, I cared about how they performed. Like, if they have a great game, good stuff. Like, I'm proud of them. And, like, growing up, if my goalie partner had a great game and I didn't, I'd just be absolutely rattled. But, yeah, I mean, our friendship, it was honestly weird at the time because I wasn't expecting to be close with my goalie partners. But just the competitiveness and practice leading up to the first games, we were all pushing each other, and it continued throughout the year. We were always pushing each other, cheering each other in practice. Like, if one of us makes a good save, we're up, like, stick taps. But, yeah.
And what's interesting, okay, so your first game was October 21st against the Danbury Hat. You had a lot of success against Danbury this season, and which is really impressive. It's a very intimidating team just all around. Billy McCurry coaches a really good team. They always have players that are attacking the goaltender as much as they can. But you get that first win. I mean, so close to, a shutout win and everything. You stop 24 of 25. You get the win. And it was at home in Binghamton. What was that night like for you?
I think I lost it for a second.
Oh, I do apologize. I was just kind of curious how that first win was. You had you saved 24 out of 25, almost got the shutout and everything. A win at home in Binghamton on the 21st. Talk to me a little bit about that night and what that was like for you.
That night. So leading up to it, I don't think I've ever been nervous for a hockey game, but the Aggies game, our first home game, the home opener, I'm like, wow, that's a lot of people. So I kind of sat down before the game with Eggie and C-Mac, and I was like, I'm nervous. Like, I couldn't even salivate. I was so nervous. I don't even know. That's never happened to me before. And they both pretty much said the same thing. They're like, you're on the ice to play a fun game. Like, it's just the game you grew up playing. Like, you don't even notice what's going on outside of that. And I was like, yep, and then from there I was like, all right, I just got to, like they said, go out there and play the game I grew up playing. It's fun. So, I mean, yeah, I was amped for that game, and I went out there, and from the first shot, I was seeing the puck really well, and I was like, this is going to be a great game. And that was probably the most fun hockey game I've played at that point in my career.
Nice. Now, you won 6 in a row. You were 6-0 after your first 6 games that you played.
Yep.
You know, and the Black Bears were rolling. Let's be honest. The offense was good. You know, you saw probably a few more shots than maybe the other 2 goaltenders did, and you have this amazing speed with your glove and whatnot. But how did you feel after those first 6 games? You know, you're going into December now. You're 6-0, and I got to imagine the confidence was definitely growing.
Yeah, I mean, my defense and offense made it super easy for me. They were playing just as well as anyone on the team was. Yeah, they made it super easy for me, and I will admit, yes, the confidence was flowing, but so was the teams. We were just all rolling as one, and it felt great. Being 6 or 7-0 at the time, whatever. It was awesome. We all felt on top of the world, and then that one Carolina weekend, boom, just like that, 4 goals in the first period. My night's over. And that was honestly a wake-up call, snap back to reality, because it's just hockey, and things can change just like that.
Yeah. Now, you have that game against Carolina. You get pulled 4 goals, obviously, as you said, and everything. Can you talk to me about, because there's not I mean, at the time there wasn't a goalie coach. I know Connor Mack had kind of goalie coached a little bit the season before and everything. But who comes to you and talks to you? Does Brant have the right words, not being a goaltender by trade himself, you know, when he played and everything? Does Brant have the words to say, Sam, it's okay, it's a game, we move on, we move to the next thing? Does Connor say something to you? How do you kind of get that coaching when your head coach is just not a goalie coach?
So, yeah, like that game specifically, right when I got pulled in the first period, Brant came up to me. He's like, that's not on you. Like, keep your head up. Like, Brant's always been an uplifting coach to me. But as far as coaching, I think that's another part of why me, Eggie, and C-Mac were so close. The 3 of us, had to kind of come together and coach each other, just because you forget you forget the simplest things, and when your game's off, you're like, you feel like you're doing everything right, but it really helped to have 2 other guys there to like remind you, like, oh, are you snapping your head early enough? Are you getting your feet set? Are you coming out far enough?
Right.
So you kind of just bounce ideas back and forth with them, and honestly, it worked out. It just having 3 guys coaching each other, and it definitely helped as much as it could at that point.
So let me ask you probably one of the hardest questions I'm going to ask you. Well, I got 2 questions that are probably pretty hard, but this one is more about logistics and consistency and you know, and the game flow and stuff like that. Was it difficult to, you know, because you want ice time, you want to be on the ice, you don't want it just in practice, but you want it in games. Was it difficult, even though Sherwood was doing whatever he could to keep the 3 of you guys and everything together as long as he could? Was it hard to go into a game when you hadn't played in a couple weeks?
Yeah, for sure. It's almost what I would tell myself is like, it's just like the first game of the season again. Like you just got to come out like you did at the first game of the season. It's refreshing, but I was struggling to see the puck, and I ended up putting myself in a rut. But I don't know. I hit a flat spot. I think it was a confidence thing at the time because I went from this great start of the year, and then obviously C-Mac took over, which he was playing out of his mind.
He was.
Yeah, he's a great goalie. So yeah, like I said, it's kind of a confidence thing. But going into a game after not playing for a while, you just got to keep reminding yourself that, like, you're 0-0. Like, fresh start. Even if a goal goes in, it's 0-0, new game.
Yeah.
I was just having a hard time with that myself.
And when you're having confidence issues as a hockey player, where does the confidence come from? Does it come within you, or does it come within the team and your players all surrounding you and getting you back to that high confidence again?
It's a little bit of both. I think my team did as much as they could to help me with confidence. The team in general, even Sherwood, like, they're always uplifting, like I said. Like a good save in practice, so they're all stick taps. Good save in a game. They'll give me knuckles. But for me, it kind of stems from how I perform in a game.
Sure.
Like in practice, like I'll have a good practice, it'll be great. But as soon as a game comes, it's kind of just like even keel. Like everything kind of resets, and like I'll base my confidence off of how I play that week.
Yeah, absolutely, with 100%. So let's talk about the day that Coach Sherwood brought you into the office and talked to you. Talk to me a little bit about that day. Probably one of the tougher days for you. I don't know if in any of the other leagues, the lower, when you're playing youth hockey, I don't know if this conversation ever came up where a coach is releasing you. Without telling us all the details, can you walk us through that conversation with Coach Sherwood? Because, again, this is a guy we just talked about. You just talked about it, how a phone call made your decision to come play for Binghamton, and now he's having – and I've had conversations with Coach Sherwood, and I can honestly say that when he's either released somebody or he's had to talk to somebody about something serious, it affects him as much as the person that he's affecting. And so I'm just kind of curious. Can you walk me through that conversation with Coach Sherwood?
Yeah, so I was kind of honestly prepared for it. But just the way I was playing at the time and the way Eggy just completely got possessed that one weekend, he played out of his mind.
Yeah.
That night I was like, I can kind of see this happening. And then go figure, the next morning he calls me, pretty much gives me the rundown, and then I went to the rink to talk to him. So pretty much last year they had 3 goalies for playoffs, which he didn't want because he can use that third goalie spot for another offense or defense guy.
Sure.
So he brought me in, told me, like, listen, like you said, yeah, it affected him and me. He was just telling me that at the time, like, I'm getting outplayed, and I totally agreed with him. I was in a rut. C-Mac and Eggy were playing lights out per usual, and he had to let me go. And I was like, yeah, like, it was emotional for sure for me. I was crying a little bit, but
it's okay. You're human, and that's okay.
Right, yeah, and like you said, I mean, kind of the first time it's happened, so I still look up to Sherwood. He's an awesome guy, and even in that moment, I asked him, I was like, what do you think I should do from here? Like, he was like, keep playing, dude. And he's like, you're a great goalie. You'll find a place to play. And that honestly made me feel real good. And I was like, okay, I'll keep playing. I'll find a place to play. So he kind of honestly inspired me to keep going this year, which is awesome.
What did Connor Mack and Eggy say to you?
Oh, so they both were the first two to reach out to me. They were heartbroken. I mean, I think Eggy's word was, I don't even know, a dagger in the stomach or something. I can't remember exactly what he said.
Honestly, that sounds like Eggy. Nolan is very, he can come up with those very descriptive phrases that make you, so that doesn't surprise me at all with Eggy.
He's got the biggest vocabulary I've ever seen.
Absolutely.
It's awesome.
Absolutely.
But yeah, they were both great. C-Mac texted me a long paragraph. He was like, dude, you're my brother. Like, I'm always here for you no matter what. Like, who knows, maybe we'll end up being teammates down the wire again. And they're just super, super nice and uplifting to me, per usual. I'm actually still living in Binghamton, so I'm commuting. So they still invite me to hang out with them from time to time. They're just true friends, Yeah,
I think the Styx concert happened. Did you go to that with them?
Yeah, me and Iggy went.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I saw the picture of it and everything, and that's just amazing and everything. I know Colin Fitzgerald loves Styx and everything, so I think he went to the concert as well. So there was a few of you guys at that concert.
Yeah, C-Mac was on the fence of coming too. I forget what happened, but yeah, we all wanted to go. That was a fun night for sure.
That's awesome, and of course that's afterwards. So the call came from Elmira. Who made the call? Who got in touch with you?
So Jurich did. He wanted 3 goalies for playoffs. So he reached out to me. Pretty much said he'd pick me up. I was like, okay, like sweet. I'm pretty much set on you guys as is, just because me and my girlfriend live in Binghamton, and
sure,
that's the closest option for me. So I was like, yep. It's like it's just convenient for me, and obviously I love playing there as well. So
yeah, and it's a different environment. Coach Jurich, in his first year of coaching, maybe coaches the team a little bit different than Coach Sherwood. But I look at it as this way: that's a good thing for you as well, right? You're seeing a different side of how someone coaches and whatnot, and I think you can learn from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And as far as pro hockey goes, it's a good thing, like you said, just to have different types of coaches. So, like, as long as I'm playing pro hockey, it's my future coaches or whatever. Like, it'll be good to compare and kind of get used to the different types of coaching in pro hockey.
So, March 17, 2024, you play against your old team. Probably didn't go the way that you wanted it to. You got about 39, almost 40 minutes in. The old team, they scored 5 on you. But I know I saw pictures of the guys and coming to you and just, embracing you and whatnot. Talk about the whole evening for you playing against Binghamton again in Binghamton.
It was awesome, honestly. So obviously I didn't play the way I wanted to. I was still kind of in my rut at the time. I haven't gotten my feet under me, but before the game, all the guys are texting me. They're like, "Are you playing? You playing?" I'm like, "No, I'm not playing. Bernard's playing." But after the first period, Coach George comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, you're going." I was like, "Wow, okay," just like that. So I didn't really have any time to obviously think about it. So I just went right into it. It was fun. I had fun. Obviously, Tomery gets that first one on me, and then Fletcher's behind the net chirping me. I give him a little squirt with my water bottle to the face. It's all fun and games.
Love it.
That was funny. But yeah, I mean, being in Binghamton, it was very welcoming. It was a nice, warm welcome back. The fans, obviously, I talked to them before and after the game. Awesome people. It was awesome playing in that. It was weird playing in that building on the other end. I've never been in the away locker room. I've never sat on that side before.
It's not as nice over there, right? That visiting locker room in Binghamton, that's not as nice as the one that you got to be in for the first half of the season.
Oh, I know, but it's still really nice compared to other away locker rooms around the league. It's probably, if not the best away locker room in the league.
The question here is, this is a very important question. Does the Binghamton away room have hot water?
Yes, it does.
Okay. All right. I just had to ask because I know there's reports out there that maybe other away locker rooms don't have hot water, and you can confirm that the Binghamton side away locker room does have hot water. That's good.
Yes, I can confirm.
So Sam, what is it for you? What is the plan for you going forward? Are you going to continue to play next year? Is it your kind of mission to still play pro hockey next year?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm young. I'm gonna see how far I can take this for sure. Practicing with the crunch is honestly...
Oh, I was going to ask you about that as well. So this year, one of the great things that happened is a relationship that's always been there in New York State hockey. You have to understand that in New York State, not you understand, but just the fans and just in general, that there's hockey in Utica, there's hockey in Syracuse, Rochester. Binghamton was AHL for a very long time as well. Elmira has always been on and off with minor pro hockey, with the ECHL teams that have been there, now the FPHL teams there. So upstate New York has been a great system for minor league hockey, getting guys to the NHL and whatnot, and coming through some of those AHL cities. One of the coolest things was when the Syracuse Crunch called down and asked Sherwood to send the 3 goalies up and everything. And so you, C-Mac, and Eggy got to go up and practice with the Syracuse Crunch. That must have been a blast for the three of you.
Yeah, it was honestly one of the coolest things I've ever done. Just walking in and, meeting the guys like you're a part of the team. They're super nice guys on Syracuse, even all the coaches and equipment managers, much like Binghamton, honestly, super welcoming. Mm-hmm. And just being able to step on the ice with those guys was a surreal feeling. It was just, I had a blast.
And you've been up there more than once, right?
Yeah, I think 4 or 5 times now.
That's phenomenal. And the Crunch, some of those players up there, these are some of these guys are going to play in the NHL. One of the things I was listening to the other day, Sam, and I want to get your opinion on it. I was listening to there's a TikToker, his nickname is Babs. I can't remember exactly his full name, but he was talking about the difference between an NHL goaltender and an ECHL goaltender. Now, this guy also played in the FPHL one time, so he does a little bit of comparisons and everything. But he was talking about when people ask him about a difference between an NHL goaltender and an ECHL goaltender, he says there's not that much, right? And he says that, when it comes to goaltending, there's not that much. So you got to go up and play in these practice sessions with guys who are going to play in the NHL. These shooters, the defensemen, these forwards, these have NHL quality kind of shots. What was it like to be able to take some of those shots? And in some cases, you're making saves against these guys. And sure, maybe they're not giving it 100% because it is a practice session, but you got to feel pretty good, and it has to build your confidence to know that you're up there making saves against these guys.
Oh, yeah, 100%. So, obviously, at first, it's intimidating, but after the first drill, it's okay, they're smart hockey players. They're not going to hit me in the head.
Sure.
Just track the puck like you normally do.
Yeah.
And it's from there, it's I'm just going through the motions. It's very, like you said, it's really helped my confidence at the time. It's just hockey, and obviously, when I'm out there being confident, making a glove save or a blocker save, one of the guys will just come down and just rip one 100 miles an hour past my ear. Just I'm like, okay, yep, I forget, whatever. But it is like you said, there's goaltending's weird because I feel any goalie good enough can play at any level. You know, I'm not saying like a Fed goalie can go right to the NHL or anything because obviously you got to have like the height and
because the NHL goalies now they want like guys that are like 6'5", and I think the Flyers just debuted a goalie who's like 6'8".
Oh my goodness, I didn't even see that. But
that's crazy.
Yeah, I remember like Ben Bishop and Pekka Rinne and even Vasilevsky now. They're big guys.
Yeah, exactly.
They're also mobile.
Yes, and that's important. They have all those qualities and everything. Well, there is actually a back in the day, and I think it was 87, 88, the AHL toyed with putting in the shootout. So one season they had the shootout, and the Binghamton Whalers had a game that they needed to win. It went to the shootout. Rochester pulled their normal goalie and put this guy in there who probably weighed about 350 pounds. At least that's what it looked like. In his goalie gear and everything, he took up most of the net, did not give up a shootout goal, and the Whalers did not move on into playoffs. It's funny. I laugh about it, but it just stands to reason that in 2000 and this day and age, goalies are just getting bigger, and bigger, and like you said, more mobile as well.
Yeah, it's almost like they're made in a lab. But nowadays, goaltending it's changed so much. Yeah. It's crazy to me, but I mean, what's that?
No, it really is. No, I agree.
Yeah, 100%. It's crazy. It's honestly mind-boggling. Like comparing to like forwards and defense, it's just I think it's one of the biggest parts of the game that's changed is goaltending.
Okay, so now Sam, you've listened to the show before, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, so on Sundays I always ask people 6 more questions so I'm going to do that with you now and everything because it's Sunday. Let's do that. Okay.
Right.
All right. Number 1, and these are the same questions. You've heard these questions before, so you know what's coming. So number 1, to this point in your hockey playing career, what has been your greatest achievement so far?
My greatest achievement in this point in my hockey career would probably be playing in this league. Really proving to myself that I could play professional hockey at a young age. I think that is probably the most or the best achievement in my hockey career. And then behind that was probably winning nationals back in 2021.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. And what's funny is when you talk about it, you're 21 years old. I mean, you're going to be 22 in August. So there's a lot to be said to say I did this at this age when the 2 goalies you're playing against or we're playing with, Connor Mack and Eggy, they're 4 or 5 years older than you. So it is pretty impressive. Okay, number 2. Are you a Nintendo, Xbox, or PlayStation player, and what is your go-to game?
So I'm an Xbox and Nintendo guy.
Oh, you like both?
Yeah, so Xbox, me and the Binghamton guys, we play Fortnite, NHL, Call of Duty, pretty much almost every game. We're just gamers.
Fair enough.
And on Nintendo, me and Tom we're the only Nintendo guys. But I play like Mario Kart, and I'm honestly I'm a big Pokemon guy as well.
Nice. Mario Kart is one of my favorite games of all time. I just love it.
Oh yeah, it's the most consistently entertaining game, I'd say.
Agreed. Okay, are you a rock, country, or hip hop music lover, or EDM for that matter? Because a couple guys have said that. And who's your go-to artist?
So mostly rap and EDM.
Okay.
Growing up, I was like a rock metal guy.
Yeah.
But like throughout high school, I kind of changed to EDM and rap. Country music is just a summer background thing for me.
With your hairstyle, I could see you rapping. I really could. Man, just let those curls flow and everything, right? I'm just saying. That's just my opinion. Okay, so I'm going to ask you this is going to be a 2-part question. Number 4 is going to be a 2-part question. All right.
Okay.
Who is the funniest guy in the locker room? And we're going to go Binghamton, and then we're going to go Elmira. I know it's only been a few weeks that you've been in Elmira, but give us the funniest guy in the locker room in Binghamton and then also in Elmira.
That's a tough one. I think, honestly, unpopular, maybe popular opinion, I want to say Liam Anderson.
Really? Wow.
Just because so obviously, like, Weber, Fletch, and C-Mac, like, they're all funny guys. Like, they're super funny.
Right.
But L.A., with him, he's so quiet.
Straight.
But, like, every time I talk to him, he just says the funniest stuff ever. And he always, like, catches me off guard, and I'm just, like, laughing so hard.
Well, Liam will be listening to this. L.A. has listened to most of the Power Play Post Show, and I thank L.A. for doing that. He came up when he was scratched the other night to the press box to say hello to me and everything, which I totally appreciated. And he seemed so straight-laced. I even tried to crack a joke, and I couldn't get him to laugh. So I love him. I really do, and I really appreciated him coming up and doing that and everything. So that is great, because we've had a couple of people say Weebs and Connor Mack and everything, but I love that answer. That's great. I'll accept it.
Yeah.
All right, number 5. What is your go-to cheat meal or snack that you would not say is in your normal diet?
That's tough. I kind of eat everything, but probably something that I should probably stop eating is, like, so, you know, the gummy candy, the Gushers.
Yes.
Yeah, so we get the big box from Sam's Club. It's got like 100-something packets in it, and I'll just find myself just grabbing so many of them. Luckily, we ran out, and I'm kind of refusing to go buy another box, but Maddie went to go grab some the other day, and she was like, "You ate that old box."
Well, it's kind of funny that you say that. The Scooby snack one is my favorite. So there's Scooby snacks that are the gummy type of things, not the Gushers, but I eat those like there's no tomorrow. But
those are definitely my growing up snack for sure.
Gotcha. I did not get an answer for Elmira. Who's the funniest guy in the Elmira locker room so far?
Oh, right. That's a tough one. I'm gonna say, I think Klink's pretty funny.
Really? Leading scorer for the Elmira River Sharks, yeah.
Yeah, he's just a month older than me, so me and him kind of get along well. Who else? I'm gonna say Peavy. Peavy's the funniest guy.
Blake Peavy. All right, awesome. All right, number 6, and this is the one that I think stumps everybody a little bit, but it's okay. A zombie outbreak has happened, and as you know, in this world today, it probably will happen. And
right.
you're locked in a ice hockey arena. Who is the one person, dead or alive, that you would want there with you?
Anyone in the world?
Anyone.
Let's see here. Anyone in the world?
Don't forget who you live with, too, right? You don't want to get in trouble.
Yeah, I know.
But you can guess anybody.
Yeah, to not get in trouble, I'll say Maddie. But if she didn't exist in the world, I would say probably, I forget his name, but the actor that played Rick Grimes in The Walking Dead.
Oh, Lincoln. Yeah.
Not because of anything outside of his acting career, but just because he spent years on 12 seasons of that show. He's got to have something in his brain, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great guess. I love it. Sam, you talk about Maddie a little bit and everything. I wanted to personally thank you for reaching out midweek, checking on my wife and everything. She's been the most supportive person in my career doing all these shows, and you and Eggy were together and asked me how she was doing, and I absolutely 100% appreciate that. If you've got a girl that is from Rochester living in Binghamton, which we all know is a strange thing for anyone that's from Rochester or Binghamton to say, hey, I'm living up in Rochester now and I'm from Binghamton, or so on and so forth, because of the rivalry between our two cities and everything. But if she's down here with you supporting what you do, don't ever let that go. It's the best thing in the world, man. That's the best advice I could ever give you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm definitely aware of that. I mean, having someone back me 25-8. You know, it's honest. It's a blessing.
Yeah, absolutely. Sam, thank you very much for coming on the show. Happy Easter. I hope you have a great time with your family later on today and everything. And keep going, and we'll keep in touch. You and I will keep in touch. I have a feeling you might even grace the airwaves here again on the Power Play Post Show, and I would look forward to it. Maybe even during the summertime, we'll do something in the summer and just talk.
100%.
Awesome. He is Sam LiVecchi of the Elmira River Sharks, former Binghamton Black Bear, and we'll be right back right after this, right here on the Power Play Post Show.
If you're a Binghamton hockey fan, then you need to check out binghamtonhockey.net for all your news, stats, information, the Binghamton Hockey Hall of Fame, top 10 lists, profiles, and so much more. That's binghamtonhockey.net. You're listening to the Power Play Post Show.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Power Play Post Show. That was Sam LiVecchi. I wanted to open up the show with him. Great kid. Love him. He's 21 years old. Obviously, you know, just starting his pro career. Great story. And I really wanted to open up today's show with him. Obviously, welcome to the show and everything. I'm glad that if you're still listening, thank you very much. This is episode 419, season 13, episode number 34 for March 31st, 2024. And happy Easter to all of you out there. Again, as you guys all know, the Power Play Post Show is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio. Just search Power Play Post whichever platform you listen to your podcast. And please subscribe. Please join the Power Play Post Show Facebook group. Just go to Facebook and search Power Play Post Show and share with any of your friends who like the FPHL or even the Binghamton Black Bears. Check out binghamtonhockey.net for all your Binghamton hockey information and curiosity. And again, you already heard Elmira River Sharks goaltender Sam LiVecchi. He talked about his time here with the Binghamton Black Bears and now with the Elmira River Sharks, and a lot of stuff in between. I learned something new. He played on a team up in Rochester with Chris Collins, and I remember Chris Collins from playing with the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins. So very interesting how all this touches each other, this whole hockey universe and everything, which is pretty cool. So thanks to Sam for the interview. So I want to reach out and say thank you to all the fans who reached out during the last 7 days. The last 7 days were probably some of the most difficult days. My wife was sick and in the hospital, and a lot of fans reached out and sent well wishes. Really, really appreciate that. It really meant a lot to her and I as well. Okay, so thanks to Sam and Eggy as well. Sam reached out specifically while he and Eggy were together, I believe, at the Styx concert. And it really meant a lot to us that you guys were thinking of us. So really appreciate that. And happy Easter to everyone listening. To you and your family and friends, I hope you guys have a really great day. I realize not a lot of people will listen to this tonight, but they'll probably be listening to it over the next few days, which is pretty cool as well. The Black Bears lost 4 straight games, and that's the one thing I want to concentrate on just a little bit. But there might be a reason for some of the dysfunctionality that we need to take into consideration and everything. What is wrong with this team? Well, is there anything really wrong with this team? I don't think so. What I will say here is that there's an inconsistent game day roster, which I think is having a little bit of an effect on this. Now, I know that sounds like, that it may be, it's that's just a cop out and everything. These are good players, and we know that this is a good team. And when Donald Oliveri is on this team, and Gavin Yates is playing every single game because he missed obviously the game on Saturday night in Motor City, and when Connor Smith is in every single game, we know that this team can play very, very well. We've seen it multiple times. There have been some changes. Nikita Ivashkin left the organization, okay? And there have been other changes to the to this as well. But when we look at the last 4 projected lineup cards that the Binghamton Black Bears released, only two players played on the same line together all 4 games, okay? That's how different the lineup has been, because Coach Sherwood is looking for not only a playoff roster, and he's trying to figure out who's going to be his right wings, right? Which we probably surmise that Austin Thompson is going to be one of the right wingers, okay? Maybe he'll play on the left side and Donald Oliveri, but you have a right wing position available and the 10th forward position available. I think Kyle Stefan is probably won the 10th forward position, all right? He provides just enough of that extra scoring touch, and he's starting to come along a little bit here, right? But you also have a guy like Blake Tasto, who is playing very well. But getting back to my original point here, only really in one game or one line pairing has been the same all these 4 games, and that's Dakota Bond and Stone, Dan Stone. They're the only 2 guys that have played together these last 4 games. So there have been a lot of that kind of change, and people are not hitting their marks correctly, and they're just not, executing like they should be. And that's because there is this testing out of Blake Tasto, okay, Scott Ramakers, okay. You're trying to see where Stefan fits in. Cameron Clark, even though he hasn't played the last 4 games, right? You're trying to fit these guys in and figure out where they fit. Utoro played only twice in the last 4 games, okay? So there's been a little bit of that. So I think you kind of really have to look at it is that the coach is trying to figure this out. Now, he told me in a text message that on Friday against Danbury, you're going to see our playoff roster as long as, Connor Smith and Gavin Yates are available to play, because they are battling a couple injuries right now, right? So if you have those 2 guys battling a couple injuries, you bring back Donald Oliveri, and you can figure that out. So hopefully on Friday, those guys are healthy enough to return, Connor Smith and Gavin Yates, okay? And you have your playoff roster this upcoming Friday. So this upcoming Wednesday against Elmira, you're going to see still the little shuffling of the lines, and you're going to see what works, okay? JT Walters was out one of the games in these past 4. And so you had to fill him. He had Dan Weber playing on the left wing with Tyson Kirkby and Austin Thompson. So it's been a little bit of figuring out. Now, Dan Weber's not going to play forward, going much more into the future, okay? That was just a thing to get him into the game and whatnot. Jesse Anderson in the last 4 games has played a game he missed a game. Then he played a game at defense, and then he played the last 2 games centering Austin Thompson in one game and Connor Smith, and then the next game, Utoro and Tasto. You can't expect them to have any sort of chemistry when you're doing those type of things. Again, not blaming a player, not blaming a situation. That is just the situation that's going on. But let's talk about, real quick, before we move on to our interview with Gary Ryan, let's talk a little bit about those players that need to get games in to qualify. Now, we've talked a lot in the previous episodes that Colin Fitzgerald needs 15 games. There are 6 games left for the Binghamton Black Bears. He's got 9 games. He's scored 2 goals, 3 assists for 5 points. So he needs to play in the last 6 games, which that is the plan. Cameron Clark has met his requirement. He's played 5 games. He can play in the playoffs. So has Scott Ramakers. He's played 5 games. Now, Clark has 3 goals, 1 assist for 4 points, and Scott Ramakers, I'll get it right one of these times. He's played 5 games, 2 goals, 1 assist for 3 points. Okay, Brody Thornton, the defenseman, he's played 3 games. He doesn't have a point yet. He hasn't gotten a score sheet, but he's going to be your 7th or your 8th defenseman anyways going into the playoffs. pretty confident on that one, okay? Kyle Stefan, it took him a little while to get going, but he's really starting to come along recently, playing a little bit better, getting a little bit more sync. He's got 11 games played. Now, he needs to make 15, so he's got plenty of space to get in. He's got 4 goals, 1 assist, and 5 points. And then Blake Tosto has his 5 games in, right? So he's clear. He's got 4 goals, 1 assist for 5 points. So he's a point a game player right now. And Uturo, he's well past that 5 games that he needed. He's got 13 games played, 3 goals, 3 assists for 6 points. So now that you see what's happening here, you got Colin Fitzgerald who needs 6 more games. So he's playing the rest of the time no matter what, right? And you've got Brody Thornton who needs 2 more games, okay? Kyle Stefan needs 4 more games. Everybody else is qualified. That's kind of cool. That allows Sherwood to play who he wants on Wednesday as one final look-see to really start to determine, right? Because after that, you got 5 games after the Wednesday game. And those 5 games you're really going to want to play. And being that the next 3 games is Elmira and then 2 against Danbury, and there's still a game against Watertown still left, right? You really want to put your best foot forward or skate forward, so to speak, in this kind of realm. So I really do think that, we can dissect everything. The power play didn't play well this past weekend. You can take a look, maybe we didn't play well defensively. Well, a lot of stuff has shifted and moved around. I really do think that once the roster is set the way Sherwood is looking at it, you're going to have guys that will be in practice that may not see a lot of ice time, but they're going to be there and be ready in the playoffs when a guy gets hurt, when a guy goes down. You're going to have a guy like maybe, say, Brody Thornton be able to step in and play because he's already played in the system. He's played in the practices. Same with, say, Blake Tosto. Maybe he doesn't make the playoff roster, right? But he's there. He's ready to come in when need be, although Blake's played really well. So there's always a chance. This is a very tough decision, I think, for Coach Sherwood going forward. So that's really what I wanted to point there. We can look at each individual game and go, this didn't play well, this didn't go well, this didn't go well. But really what it comes down to is this team is a little out of sorts right now, a little out of sync, not because things are falling apart, but because there's a roster kind of like audition that's happening right now. And the other thing I want to say about that, it's not just for the playoffs. We're also looking at next year. How many of these players that are on the regular roster are going to return next year? Some might want to go to the SPHL and see if they can do better there, right? Some players may just retire. There's a few guys that could retire that are on this team right now. You're looking at maybe a JT Walters. He's been in this league. He's played for 5, 6, 7 years. And sometimes that's enough for people, right? So you have to look at it that way. They're auditioning for the playoffs. They're also auditioning for possibly next season. So that's where I wanted to leave that and everything because we've got still a great rest of this show left to go. Coming up next here on the Power Play Post Show, he runs the Fed League Flash. He knows more about the Federal Prospects Hockey League, the FPHL, than anybody does that I can talk to, and I'm so glad he's my friend. And he's coming up next here on the Power Play Post Show. So coming up, Gary Ryan, Fed League Flash, right here on the Power Play Post Show. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll be right back.
You're listening to the Power Play Post Show. Here is another Power Play Post Show interview exclusive with Bob Howard.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Power Play Post Show. So glad everybody is still here, still listening. And I've got one of the best people in the FPHL here on the show with me right now. He runs the very successful podcast on 3 different platforms. It is the Fed League Flash. He is Gary Ryan. Gary, welcome back to the show. I have 2 questions for you to start right off the bat. Number 1, where's the whiteboard and the notebook? Where's the notebook?
The notebook is in my hand.
Okay, good.
The whiteboard is off to the side right now, taking a little bit of a breather. There's only one game tonight, so not too bad tonight.
Now, where does the whiteboard sleep at night? Where does it rest its head and take a break?
It's just propped up, kind of sideways against an end table in the living room.
Wow. I would think that it would have a more predominant place in the household somewhere and everything. That thing is it's my favorite thing of the video is the whiteboard. I'm sorry, Gary. I love you, man. You're amazing, but the whiteboard is just I love the whiteboard.
Now, I'm looking at a problem. If we're talking that next year we're going to have at least 12 teams, maybe more.
Oh, you need a bigger whiteboard.
Exactly. I've got myself a little issue I've got to deal with before next September.
That poor whiteboard's going to get retired, and after one season, you're done. You're out of here, and everything. Gary, let's talk first about our Binghamton Black Bears. They're on a 4-game losing streak, and I know when looking at this for my segment, and I was thinking about this for a long time, what's wrong with the Binghamton Black Bears? People were asking that question. What's going on? And when I look at it, it's more so that they kind of got out of their own little sink. And one of the comments that Brant Sherwood told me, and I think he said the same thing to you maybe at one point in a conversation, Binghamton, Columbus, and Carolina had the least amount of transactions up to a certain point. And then, obviously, in this past 3 or 4 weeks, Binghamton has been really shuffling around their lineup a little bit, bringing in college kids and things of that nature. In my opinion, and I just want to get your thoughts on this, in my opinion, I think the lineup and just the shuffling around of players and trying to get people fit in, trying to, there was the thought that Mac Lewis would come back and everything. So what are your thoughts on this whole situation?
Well, I don't know how Brant or Matt Graham or Billy or whoever serves as the GM of their team, I don't know how they do it without just not sleeping, because there are so many considerations that you have to balance, not just with your roster for this upcoming Friday, but for the next 10, 20 games. And then you got to look ahead to, we've got to start getting things geared up for next season. Yeah. And there are certain restrictions, like you can only have a maximum of 5 veterans on your playing your roster, and you have to have at least 5 pure rookies.
Yeah.
So I mean that you're trying to shuffle all these people and seeing who you can and cannot play. I mean, it's tough.
No, without a doubt. And what you're referring to, a veteran is 100 games played, correct?
Veteran, my understanding is approximately 200.
Oh, okay.
There's some consideration, but pro is 100,
right?
To about 200, more or less. And then your rookies, which we didn't have a problem with coming into this year, but during the year we had a lot of players reach that 100-game threshold. So
sure.
For next year, there's a lot of pros instead of rookies, and so now you've got to reformulate everything.
Let me ask you this question, because we're talking about players and talking about the possibility of them coming back, not coming back, that type of thing when it comes to the Black Bears. Where would you put on your list for Andrew Logar? He's only got 13 goals on the season, but 10 of them are on the power play. He leads the Binghamton Black Bears with 10 power play goals. He's a plus 12 this year, but he's only got 28 points. Is that a guy you would put in your top 5, maybe top 6 of players that have to come back next year?
Yeah, I would prioritize. If Brant could reach out to Logs and say, hey, really like to have you back next year. Yeah, I definitely prioritize that because he's still growing and learning as a player. I mean, he talked about it on the interview you did with him earlier this year.
Sure.
In which he he came into this year with the Black Bears with a completely different role than what he had in college. And
he went from wing to center for a good portion of this year as well. He played center a lot.
Yeah, exactly. And so, he's been having to learn a little bit of everything this year. And, obviously, he's got his strengths. And so, we can see that, with the power play goals. Yeah, he's got the 10 goals. And most of those goals come from, right in the high slot.
Oh, yeah.
So, either that or he's, right on the doorstep. So, he's obviously gotten really proficient at that aspect of his game, and I'm sure he would say, there's other aspects where I still need to work on and develop. So, I think hypothetically, if he came back next year, I could see him as a 50-point guy.
Very, very much so. Yeah, a very possibility. So the Black Bears have lost their last 4 games. 2 of them were against Watertown. Watertown is in a huge battle with Elmira. So tinkering with the lineup a little bit, obviously trying to fit in the college guys and so on and so forth, it's almost... I was almost able to predict it. I was like, yeah, they won the game at home. That's because Binghamton at home is almost unbeatable. You just can't come into that arena for some reason get a win against the Black Bears this year. But on the road, yeah, it can definitely happen. Watertown had already beat Binghamton 5-1 earlier in the season and everything. So those 2 losses didn't necessarily surprise me at all with the movement of players and the changing around, trying to fit in and trying to figure out who's going to be the right wings, because the right wing position was really what was available and the 10th forward position. So, but Watertown really needed those wins, and they got them in regulation, getting 6 points. I thought that was probably the outcome that could have been expected.
Yeah, I would agree. And the other thing that I thought of is that, especially with the Saturday loss, was Friday was such an emotional high, and Friday was a very emotional game. Yeah. And so I think that really kind of took a lot of steam out of the Black Bears. And I mean, just my personal take, I think they may have been a little bit flat on Saturday, and then you look back to Sunday. I don't think they played poorly or badly. I think they just kind of ran out of gas, quite honestly.
Yeah,
because,
3 games in 3 nights.
They were right there right until the last 5 minutes of the third period.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. And this past weekend, taking the trip out to Michigan, Binghamton hasn't fared well when they've taken long trips, whether to be down south to Carolina, Columbus last year, or Mississippi, or out to the Michigan teams and everything. I think probably the most disappointing part was a 4-1 loss. That is like almost 3 goals per game below their average, or maybe almost 4 goals below their average. They just couldn't connect. And I would say that they got a lot of shots on goal this weekend, but really were they grade A chances? Were they the high quality chances? They really weren't, and everything.
Yeah, No, especially in that Port Huron game, I counted 3
or 4.
Where's my notes? It was. We had 40 shots on goal, and 5 of them were quality chances.
Yeah.
So 35 were just kind of okay, they're a shot on goal.
Yeah, and then of course the next game, a 6-4 loss to Motor City. The mojo of the scoring was coming back a little bit, but it came back in the third period. It's just one of those things where, every team except for Columbus has gone through this year. Yeah.
And I've got to give kudos to Motor City. Defensively,
they played well.
Yes, they played very, very well, especially in that second period. They weren't giving Binghamton any quality chances. They just shut down that middle. They forced Binghamton to the outside.
Yeah.
Played good physical hockey. They out-hustled us.
Yeah. One last thing before we leave Binghamton. You and I both made comments, and Brant came to me and basically, spanked us and sat us down and said that we were wrong. We were talking about Colin Fitzgerald. We both didn't see him play much in the 2 games this weekend, and maybe even a little bit last weekend. And, I made the slight comment that, well, if you don't hear the defenseman's name or see them too much, you usually – and, we were like, oh, well, the minutes just can't be up there, and maybe he's protecting him. And he sent me a picture that showed that he played 19 minutes. And,
yep.
What's interesting about that is because I think you and I both have the fear. He's got to play in 15 games, right? Mm-hmm. And if he doesn't play in those 15 games, he's not eligible for the playoffs. And Colin Fitzgerald is a good defenseman. He's great on the penalty kill. And he's, I've mentioned it before. He's one of the only guys in Binghamton Black Bears history to score a shorthanded goal in all 3 seasons, right? So he's an important cog if they're going to play well in the playoffs and everything. So I do want to throw it out there that, Gary and I absolutely have no problem admitting that we're wrong every once in a while and everything.
Nope.
19 minutes. And what the funny thing is, that was more than normal because usually they have more power plays, and Colin doesn't play on the power play.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I offered Brant my apologies, and I said, it's unfortunate from a fan perspective, especially when you're watching a game on YouTube.
Oh yeah, it's horrible.
There's only so much you can see, and if a defenseman is not getting touches, you just assume they're not out there.
Yeah.
And that was obviously not the case.
All right. So let's move on from Binghamton a little bit. Who is the hottest team in the Empire Division, and should we all be scared that they're hot right now?
Oh, my word. Danbury is I wouldn't say they're playing as well as they did last year. I mean, last year's team was extraordinarily special. But, yeah, Danbury, the last 25 games. I had just done a look at this a couple days ago, and in the last 25 games, their winning percentage is .600.
Yeah.
I mean, they got off to a slow start, and so we kind of dismissed them and figured they're going to limp into the playoffs, and no, they're storming in.
Yeah. Can I ask you this question? If you were building a team of Fed players, and Johnny Ruiz was available, is he almost like a top 5 guy you have to put on your team?
No, I think he is probably. This is just my opinion, but sure. I would say he's one of the top 10 players in Fed history.
Really?
Yeah. I made a joke with Doug Latuca, the Danbury play-by-play guy, one night. When Danbury was in town, I said, he's like the prince of the FPHL right now. He obviously has respect of everyone, not just his team, but everyone else, all the other teams in the league. Mm-hmm. He doesn't have the talent level of a Sidney Crosby per se, but he has that respect.
Yeah.
And just because he's out there always leading, you never know what he's going to do. I mean, it seems like he can just flip a switch and score 2 goals and 3 assists in a night. Or, he can step back and let his other guys that he sees that are being more effective on the ice just take charge and help them out. He's that kind of a player.
Should it scare other Fed teams that Taylor Joseph is on this team? He has already won 3 games with them. He's got a 2.33 goals against average with them and a .935 save percentage while being with Danbury. Should other Fed teams, including in the Empire Division, be afraid that Taylor Joseph and Connor McCollum are the duo right now in Danbury?
I think, quite honestly, overall, that is the best duo in the league. I'm probably in the minority here because Joseph does have the higher league experience, mm-hmm. but I just have a hunch that McCollum's still going to be the number 1 guy going into the playoffs because he's carried the load. Right now, he is leading the league in both wins and in minutes. and that's for a reason. I mean, he's been steady all year, and he's somebody that Billy McCreary has been able to rely on. And so if you have a guy like Taylor Joseph, I mean, we saw what he could do last year.
Yep.
If you have him as a number 2, that's pretty scary.
It is. It is.
That's a lot of depth.
I think Danbury is the scariest team going into the playoffs. I really, truly believe that. If they continue playing the way they are, the last 4 games, they only got 4 games left. So they're just tune-up games now for Danbury. Because, they could potentially overtake Motor City and have a home ice advantage. Okay, fine. That's something to play for and everything. But because Motor City's only got 2 games left. This is how interesting this is.
Right.
Binghamton has 6 games left. Motor City has 2. Danbury has 4. And then the 2 teams, the Elmira River Sharks and the Watertown Wolves, nothing is settled there. We don't know who the last team is going to be coming into it. And they have 5 games each still to be played. Yep. There's still so much going on. And, Gary, before you talk about Elmira and Watertown, how amazing is it that this year in the FPHL, we have that kind of scenario where Elmira and Watertown are still in it with 5 games left to go on their schedules. They still have the opportunity to make the playoffs because Delaware couldn't do that last year. Elmira couldn't do that last year. The parity in the league right now is so good. Yeah, exactly.
And we have witnessed that pretty recently. Binghamton's been dominant all year, and then, Watertown just decides for 2 games, we're going to beat these guys.
Yeah.
And then last night we saw Columbus go down for the 2nd night in a row. Any team can beat any other team on any given night, and we haven't had that, I don't think, ever in the Fed, really.
Right.
So that's what makes going into the playoffs so intriguing and so attractive is that, even, the teams that are struggling a little bit, like a Mississippi, hey, you never know. You get into the show, you don't know what's going to happen.
Well, Elmira and Watertown can look back now and say, listen, if we face Binghamton in the first round of the playoffs, we've beat Binghamton. And so that's the interesting part. Okay, so let me ask you this question. Elmira or Watertown, what is your gut? Who makes it?
I've got to look at my notes here. So I made some notes because I was kind of examining this and seeing, who's really got an edge here? I looked at the schedule, the remaining schedules, and I think overall, Watertown has a much easier schedule.
Okay.
But the problem is they've got to win those 2 games against Elmira. And in the season series between Elmira and Watertown, Elmira's already won the series. It's like 8 games to 5. And it just seems like if Watertown does win between those 2 teams, it's a struggle for them. Whereas Elmira, they had a pretty easy time last night with their game against Watertown.
Right.
So even though Watertown has the easier schedule, I just think that Elmira is built a little bit more balanced. I think that they're stronger in more areas, and so I think Elmira is going to end up with the 4th place spot myself. That's just my opinion.
Now, what's interesting is if they get one more win, Elmira, they have 20 wins, and that means 4 teams in the Empire Division will have 20 wins on the season, and then Watertown will be just right behind them. They have 17 right now. I find this so intriguing that how much of a change, and really the biggest change that they might have made in the whole league was the one thing that everybody hated the most, which was the 19-man roster. Right?
Yeah.
But it seems to have created a form of parity, and I don't want to give any of the guys at the top any credit, but I mean it's truly happened. Let's talk a little bit about the Continental Division. The Columbus River Dragons have played so good. They've got 50 games played just like Binghamton does, yet they have 6 more regulation wins, and they have 41 wins already on the season. Talk to me a little bit about Columbus. What is the most important thing? Somebody in the Empire Division that doesn't know anything about Columbus, what should they know about Columbus?
Columbus, in a nutshell, they are the most experienced team in the league,
okay,
and they are the deepest in the league as far as overall scoring. They have 9 players that have at least 10 goals on the roster.
Crazy.
So, yeah, you can't just say, we're taking on Columbus tonight. We're just going to shut down J-Mac. We're going to shut down Ryan Hunter. No, you've got 7 or 8 other guys that can beat you. And so you have to play a complete game against them. Kudos to Port Huron last night. They did it.
Yeah.
And Motor City did the night before as well. They're a very, very deep, experienced team. I mean, you have Brendan Colgan, who, has, I think, 10 career shutouts, which is insane. You've got...
especially at this level, especially at this league, where, I mean, it's a 5 to 6 game almost every single night, depending on who the team is, and yet, here you go, you got Brendan Colgan with 10 shutouts.
Yeah, exactly. And then they have Lavalier, who's got some ECHL experience as well. Mm-hmm. And then they just signed a very highly touted rookie out of college as well. So, they're stacked in goal. They're stacked on the offense. Defense, they're not flashy, but they're very solid and very structured. Jeffrin has really done a great job with formulating the lineup for this year.
Carolina is 8-0-2 in their last 10 games. So obviously in their last 10 games they've gotten points, playing very well right now. And as we all know, last year Carolina and Columbus battled so ferociously against each other in the regular season, and then it came down to Carolina and Columbus, obviously in the playoffs and everything for that division. Carolina, are they as good as they were last year?
That's really tough. And the main reason why I wouldn't normally just say, is because right now they're missing Peter Panacek, and he's probably not going to be returning this year. There's an outside chance he might be able to come in sometime later in the playoffs, but he was their main assist guy.
Yeah.
So that is a big loss. But, I mean, you got Ford, you got Baker, you got Roman Kramer, you've got Batista. I mean, they're another team that's stacked. And, Cavallari is back, too. So, very, very good team. Obviously, it's just from my perspective, I think Columbus and Carolina are probably going to be facing each other in that Continental Final once again. But, either of those two teams are very tough opponents.
You see more games than I do. You watch as much of the Fed games as you can. Who is the better goaltender between McCollum, and then of course in Columbus, and then of course in Carolina? Of those 3 goaltenders that we've already mentioned, who is the best one? Is it Mario? Is it Super Mario?
I would say probably, but right now it's all a matter of. When you go into the playoffs, it's all a matter of who gets hot.
Sure. And
so I think I think you could even add Babin into that conversation as well.
Let me stop you for a second on Babin. The reason why
I knew this was going to happen.
The reason why Babin is not in the top 5, because I'd even put Taylor Joseph in there, and when Connor McAnanama is playing, I'd say he's even better than Babin. And let me tell you why. Because Babin gets in his own effing way. And, and that's my opinion. He gets in his own way. He doesn't understand how to be a goaltender. He wants to be something else that he's not. Ray Emery had the same problem, right? We all know Ray Emery. Love Ray Emery. Rest in peace, buddy. I love you. But he got in his own way a lot of times as well, right? And Babin is that kind of guy. And you don't hear that about Colgan. You don't hear about that about Super Mario. Taylor Joseph doesn't get involved in any of that garbage, right? The guy probably has more penalty minutes than half the teams in this league. And that's not, and I mean, that's not a stretch here and everything. So I wouldn't put Babin up there. Now, pure skill and talent as a goaltender, he's definitely in the top 5. But because of there's more to it than just pure skill and talent, that's why I don't put him up there.
And I understand that too. I don't know. Maybe I'm being swayed by Trav a little bit. Who knows?
Sure.
Because Trav always held Babin on a very high.
Now you're just trying to trigger me.
But I do see in Babin a lot of what I saw with Ray Emery. I mean, it's really funny how similar the two of them
personality-wise
were.
Yeah.
But and that's the thing is, Emery for so long in his career, whether it was in the AHL or up in the NHL, he would struggle a bit, and as you said, kind of get in his way, and he loses cool and whatnot. But then, he would get hot, and that one year that the Senators went all the way, to the Cup Finals, I mean, he was undeniably a great goaltender for that year, and I can see Babin fitting the same mold, and that's why I kind of pop him in there.
But somebody has to put him on a leash and be able to control him because honestly, he gets in his own way, and when you have a goaltender that's suspended as much as Daniel Amesbury, then that's a problem. And unfortunately, that happens. All right, before I let you go, have we seen enough success in a place like Wytheville and Baton Rouge that we can say that that those two cities can build on what they've done? Has there been enough success based on attendance and games played and just the organization level about those two teams to say, even though they're in 5th and 6th, they're not making it to the playoffs, there has been success there?
Well, now they're kind of two different stories.
Sure.
Baton Rouge had professional hockey for many years prior.
Yep.
So, and I kind of hate to use a term, but they're not a virgin market like Wytheville is.
Right.
And I have to admit that when the announcement was originally made for Wytheville, I thought that is never going to work, and boy, was I proved wrong.
Okay.
The ownership and the management of the team have done an incredible job with building the brand and building excitement, getting corporate sponsorships. I think off ice, just talking about off ice, I think the Bobcats have been more successful than the Zydeco have.
Okay.
The Zydeco have done great. I mean, they've got the advantage of having a nice big arena, so they can have 4,000 fans every night.
Sure.
And it's great that those fans are turning out. And boy, they were passionate last night in that win last night that they got. I think that the long-term prospects probably are a little bit better for Blue Ridge, just because of the tremendous growth that's been going on in the community. And, I mean, attendance has doubled per game from the beginning of the year to now.
Yeah, they're up to 1277 on average, which is actually pretty good to where they were and everything.
Exactly. I mean, the first couple of games, they were struggling to get 700 fans in there, and half of those fans were from Carolina.
Yeah.
So, it's great that, they're bringing in fans, and the community is really excited about this team. I see good things happening in both markets, but specifically in Blue Ridge.
So Binghamton is about 2,000 away from hitting 100,000 again. They have 3 more home games left. Obviously, they're going to hit the 100,000 mark. They could potentially beat last year's record of about 107,000, depending I mean, I think they're going to hit 3,900, probably 4,200, and then probably 4,600, in the last 3 games. That would put them over 107,000, probably even close to 110. Baton Rouge has 6 games left. They're at 84,000. They're doing, obviously, very well, and their average is 38.63. Columbus has 3 games left. They're averaging 35.16. They're at 87.908. Do you think we see 3 teams hit 100,000?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I'm a little doubtful with Columbus because you're down south, the weather's getting warm, and it's baseball season, and there's a lot of other distractions out there right now. Plus, you got March Madness going on. So I don't know if they hit it. I hope they do. If they miss, they're going to be real close, just like last year.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely the 2 are going to make it. I'm pulling for Columbus to make it.
Yeah, me too. I really, really, really want that to happen. Gary, first week of the playoffs, we'll have you back on. We'll talk about the matchups and everything that's going on. Sound good?
Sounds excellent.
All right. Now, it's the Fed League Flash. It's on Facebook. It's on Spotify. And it's also on YouTube. The YouTube videos are great because you get to see sometimes the notebook, and you always get to see the whiteboard, which is my favorite part of his YouTube broadcast. Not Gary, but definitely the whiteboard itself. I love it. It's a little character within what you do, which is pretty awesome. And everything.
That's the better looking of the pair, too.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, my God. I mean, it's just gorgeous. And which is great. So check out him on all 3. Now, Gary, what's the followership number up to now? What are you guys up to about now? Between the 3?
I haven't checked in a couple weeks. I'm about 1,800.
Nice.
I think thereabouts.
Nice. By the way, your average is now above 3, 4, 5 teams in the FPHL. You're doing pretty good.
There you go.
You got to look at it that way.
I should charge money.
No, don't put it on a paywall, please don't. I'm so worried. I'm so worried that the FPHL is going to eventually do that, and I really hope they don't. But Gary, thank you very much.
Certainly, thank you.
Okay, so the Power Play Post Show is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio. Just search Power Play Post Show on whichever platform you listen to. Please join the Power Play Post Show Facebook group. Gary's on it. He knows. Just go to Facebook and search for the Power Play Post Show. Check out binghamtonhockey.net for all your Binghamton hockey information and curiosity. Thank you to Rob Lapolis, our MC, John Patitucci, our musical director, and Gary Ryan. That's you, right, Gary?
Last I checked.
Yeah, of the Fed League Flash. And from the Elmira River Sharks, Sam LiVecchi. Thank you for listening, everybody, to the Power Play Post Show. I'll talk to you again on Thursday. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to this edition of the Power Play Post Show. Be sure to tune in next week to the Box Studios Radio Network for all the latest Black Bears news and interviews from around minor league hockey. The Power Play Post Show would like to thank John Patitucci for all the music you hear on the show. You've been listening to the Power Play Post Show.